Second hour of Popcorn Politics. Daniel Lewis Crumpton is here to do a retrospective on The Matrix. Daniel, you there?
This evening I would like to open with a classic poem from the Scottish poet Lord Lady Perry of Kate. This was never the way I planned, not my intention. I got so brave, drink in hand, lost my discretion. It's not what I'm used to. I just want to try you on. I'm curious for you, caught my attention. I kissed a girl, then I liked it, the taste of her cherry chapstick. I kissed a girl, just to try it. I hope my creepy stalkers don't mind it. Hey, Dylan!
Hi. What was that?
We're gonna have some cunnilingus on the Matrix tonight.
I don't think that means what you think it means.
I
You
don't
might-
think you think it thinks what I think it means.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a new word. That's the word of the week. We taught Kai Wong the word cunnilingus, and so it's been following us around. So you wanted to do a retrospective. We were batting back and forth what we're going to do tonight. I'm like, dude, let's just do a speculative on Matrix 4. You were like, dude, I hadn't seen 2 and 3. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Dylan, what's wrong with you? And I was like, all right, we'll do that. And then we'll go in overtime and do like 2, 3, and then speculation on 4. So this will be the cunnilingus of the Matrix thing, like a popcorn politics and in the car orgy.
So, Matrix.
You bring the loop? You got the loop?
No, I thought you did.
Ah, man. Do we need it?
Oh, well. Matrix 1.
Matrix 1.
Matrix 1. What?
No.
Sorry, you sounded like you wanted to say something.
It's your show, Dylan. Take control of your show.
All right. Daniel, be quiet.
All right.
So, the first Matrix was kind of a cultural phenomenon, from my understanding. Full disclosure, I was a year old when it came out, so I don't know.
Oh, my God.
Daniel, behave.
All right, keep going. Keep talking.
And it had revolutionary special effects, and is still talked about to this day as kind of a really deep philosophical movie. But I'm gonna be honest, I was not big on what I saw. I watched it 4 years ago, and I wasn't thrilled with it. I thought it was fine. I don't know. I think I digested so much of the plot via osmosis, similarly to how I absorbed the plot of Star Wars before I actually saw it, that it just didn't hit me the same as it might have.
Yeah, well, if you were a year old when the first Matrix came out, then I wouldn't expect it to, because you are in the age of, everybody already being on the same page that we live in a simulation. Elon Musk and all the great physicists and things like that. I mean, now it's just common knowledge that the odds of us actually living in base reality is 0. So your generation wouldn't have blown too much wind up your kilt anyway. So I get it, but let me just tell you from my generation, which is Generation X, from our perspective, I remember sitting in the theater when that first came out. This is like I had a pager back then. Okay. So you probably don't even know what a pager is, do you?
I know what a pager is.
Awesome. Win for me. So that's where we were. The internet was it was still bulletin boards for the most part. AOL was just becoming a thing. Okay. Or it was getting big, but not everybody had the internet, that's for sure. So whenever I sat in the theater, a friend of mine had went with me, and it was like in the beginning when it first came on, I was like, well, this is Johnny Mnemonic. Like, this is another version of Johnny Mnemonic, okay, which it was a shit Keanu Reeves movie or whatever. But when it actually got to the red pill, blue pill, and oh my God, you're living in a simulation. And I remember looking at my friend and I said, what if this shit's the truth? You know what I'm saying? Back then, seriously, back then it was absolutely mind-bending to be exposed to the modern day Neo-Platonic, and I mean Plato's allegory of the cave type thing, with modern things to grasp onto, like the internet and technology and video games and simulations and things like that. Back then, dude, it was for those who were ready for it, which was very few. Now, everybody loved it. And I think that everybody loved it, yes, because of the special effects, but obviously it's the script and the concept of the Matrix thing that everybody
Oh.
really appealed to. Because, hang on, let me finish my damn point, dude. Come on, Dylan. Let me finish. Don't when I'm on a roll. When you
uh,
on a roll and I'm not being facetious and I'm being like real serious and philosophical and whatnot, and then you go, and you just totally mess up my rhythm. Let me get back on it, all right?
go.
Okay. So, where was that?
The concept and the
Yeah,
script.
the concept and the script, I think the reason the first Matrix was such a smash was that I think, and you know me, I'm a spiritual, philosophical type of guy, is on a subconscious level. Everyone knows on a subconscious level that we are not awake, not as awake as we should be, not as awake as we could be. I think that's written into our DNA. Um, so everybody was drawn to it because it's something that we all kind of feel deep inside, and we have since we were, we came into the world. But for those of us who were going to go down the rabbit hole, it meant a little bit more. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, it does.
yeah, you would have to, I mean, you would literally have to really use your imagination. I know that you could, and picture a society that doesn't have the internet, which would you, for you, that would be hell. I mean, you wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? You live in the internet. So for you,
Yeah.
obviously the Matrix isn't going to have the same profound impact on you that it did on my generation. But I make you a bet, and whenever we start talking about speculation on part four, I bet you part four is going to blow your mind. I bet you part four is going to twist your noodle, whatever that means.
Maybe.
No.
Uh, we shall see. But I mean, this first one, look, it's well made, it's well acted.
Still
Keanu
stands
Reeves,
up today.
it still stands up today. Some of the CGI looks a little dated.
What?
Uh, the
Okay.
CGI, the effects.
In the first movie?
Yeah, some of them look a little dated. The slow-mo looks a little silly.
Whatever, dude. Have you? We've already established you don't do psychedelics. All right, go ahead.
No, I don't.
We'll get you there.
No, you won't, but that's okay.
I'm confident in my
Um,
abilities. Just saying.
I'm
Go ahead,
confident
dude.
in
All
mine.
right. The
But
Matrix. Get this
regardless,
back on track,
The
Dylan. Come on.
Matrix.
Yeah.
The Matrix. Uh, Hugo Weaving kind of steals this movie out from under everyone as Agent Smith.
I don't know about that. I don't think anybody necessarily stole it. I think that everybody showed up with their A game, honestly. I think everybody from Carrie-Anne Moss to Keanu Reeves to Lawrence Fishburne to Hugo Weaving, I think they all, like, they brought their A game. I think all of them did. Now, in the second and third one, maybe so, but in the first one, I think that it was just all of them did a fantastic job. And I think that the reason that they did was because the script and the concept just, I mean, you had no choice. It was effortless because at the time, that concept, though it, though the Wachowskis, well, it was the Wachowski brothers back then, but now it's the Wachowskis, which, is what it is. But they pulled elements from all over and then made this one thing, which is very, very Gnostic. And, ultimately, I mean, that is what you're looking at with the Matrix trilogy is Gnosticism anyway. And Gnosticism basically is like syncretism, which is taking all sorts of different beliefs and schools of faith and yada yada and putting them into one cohesive thing. And that is what the Matrix is. So I don't think that Hugo Weaving stole it. I think they all just brought their A game. You just like Agent Smith because you're a statist.
No, I like Agent Smith because I like villains.
Oh, that's right.
I have an affinity for villain characters. We established this with the Man of Steel discussion.
Right.
Um, but I mean, no, you're right. Everyone brought their A game. Carrie Ann Moss didn't fully work for me. I just wasn't big on her character in general. I didn't love Trinity.
Mm.
I don't know. I That might be blasphemy. I'm not sure.
I wouldn't say it's blasphemy. I would just say that you're just you, Dylan. I mean, she had to be there, for
She
the
did.
for for what they were ultimately. it's very obvious even in the first movie that what the Wachowskis were doing were bringing the myth of the Christ avatar to a modern day telling, and with the Christ avatar story and the storyline of the Christ avatar, you have to have a Mary Magdalene, and so that kind of demands that there be a Trinity. You know what I mean? That Trinity has to be there in order to tell the story appropriately.
Right. No, and I get that.
Yeah.
So what about I've talked a lot about what didn't work for me. What worked for you? What made the movie so profound that we're still talking about it?
Guns and trench coats was one, which I actually have that trench coat, by the way, the lobby coat. Yeah, I actually
Of
have
course
that.
you do. Of
I
course you
do.
do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. And me and Keanu Reeves have the same birthday, which is so awesome. I sent him a birthday card this past September 2nd, and he was like, didn't respond, and I was like, oh, it's so sweet. I get it. And anyway, what worked for me? I mean, the special effects worked for me, obviously, clearly. But for me, it was the storyline, the concept, the execution, and the fact that, before this movie, I did not take Keanu Reeves seriously as an actor at all because it was, I just thought of Keanu Reeves as like, whoa. But in this one, it was like, oh, this dude can kind of act, even though he was a little, stoic. That was the part that he was supposed to play, so it worked out great. But the what worked for me was
What about
the
the story?
what about the story? What worked for me with the story? Hey, man! Hey, dude, I'm live on the radio. Tell everybody hey and that you're honored to bring me my dinner for the night. All right, dude. You got my Uber?
Huh. So,
All
while he's
right. How
while
much
he's
should I tip this
talking,
guy, Dylan?
I will uh I will continue on with the discussion of the Matrix. Um,
Yeah.
so I've talked about what didn't work for me. Let me talk
Do
about
you
what
like the
worked
Matrix?
for
You
me.
looking for the fourth Matrix movie?
Uh, Let me talk about what I'm not
Oh,
sure who he's talking to. Let me talk about what
I'm
worked
talking
for.
about my delivery guy. Hang on.
Oh,
This
okay.
is this is real life, Dylan. We don't edit.
Let
This is live
let me
radio.
let me talk
All
about
right,
what
man. Be
worked
good.
for me. Um, I really liked how they crafted this world, made it believable, and they they subsequently sort of pulled the layers back. It felt, I mean, it feels weird to say this because this is the movie that sort of created it, but this movie really did set a trend for how you create like a sandbox world and then pull it back. Lost sort of did that as well. They presented us a world, a mystery, and then slowly unraveled it. The Matrix just did that inside a movie.
Yeah,
And
and um, yeah, with the concepts that they were dealing with, you had to, because I mean, going back to Plato's allegory of the cave, and going back to every
Mhm.
spiritual school that speaks. I mean, every spiritual school speaks about this being Maya, this existence that we had, that we are in, this world that we're living in is an illusion. All right. Now, this is true. This is the truth. I mean, it just is what it is. And some of us are ready to accept that and then go down the path that that takes, and which leads to a spiritual lifestyle. Most people aren't, man. Most people are still stuck in the material, and they are asleep, and they're content to stay asleep. So I don't think that the Wachowskis were necessarily start setting out to make a movie. I think that making a movie was the medium for them to instigate a spiritual revolution, to set
I-
off a time bomb in a generation to start thinking about these concepts. And how they did it, like you said, how they unfolded it in this particular movie, which is starting us out, with one something the opening scene with Trinity is extraordinary, and we see that there's some beyond normal physics going on here, to catch our attention, and then quickly they put us behind our own eyes, which is Thomas Anderson in a humdrum, boring world where you go to a cubicle job and you punch a clock and it's just boring, and then they slowly acclimate you to back to Alice going through, the looking glass, so to speak, which is another big motif of the Matrix movies, Alice in Wonderland, right?
Right. Um, I so I don't know if I agree that this was them trying to instigate a spiritual revolution. I think that artists put their philosophies into their works, and because of how they later revealed their actual identities to the world and sort of came out, this movie is kind of that in a way as well.
And
It
you know what, dude? I have heard and I have read that the Wachowskis came out and said, "Oh, actually, all of you are wrong with your philosophical musings about the Matrix. It's actually about transgenderism,
well,
right?"
art every piece of art, that's the great thing about it, is up to interpretation even beyond the person who created it. You're
Yes.
not wrong for believing that the Matrix isn't about something, but what you then have, if the artist comes out and says that's not what I was interpreting from it, you have to coach your interpretation with this interpretation is separate from the creator,
Hmm.
because the creator can intend one thing, but art hits us all in different ways.
Right. And
So,
as an artiste myself, as a creator,
as a
I
writer as well.
as a writer, I know and I accept that whilst a creation is within my intellectual and spiritual belly, it is mine. But once it's released, then you're right. My hopes and dreams for whatever it is that I put on a page, or any other form of creativity that I may be involved in, it isn't mine anymore. You are literally letting it take its own path. And so for the creators, even if it was true, which I don't believe it's true, I think that that's just some PR stuff to kind of throw us off of what may happen in the Matrix 4. Even though I understand and respect that the issue of transgenderism is very important to the Wachowskis. I mean, duh, that's obvious. But if you expect me to believe, Wachowskis, that the entire intent of the first Matrix movies, or the first Matrix movie, is about transgenderism, you're not fooling me.
I
Not
mean,
at all.
I mean, it can be about multiple things, and uh, if you take the world as an just to mean identity, then yeah, peeling back the layers of identity to reveal who you really are is very in line with the theme of the movie of peeling back the layers of the world to reveal what it actually is.
Yeah, and I think it's also on the same token. I think it's about peeling back the ego of the individual also, um, to reveal, the higher self. And for them, for the Wachowskis, it was that they feel that they were born into a sex that is not true to who they are at their highest level. So I get it, but once that movie was out to the rest of us, it is ours. It's all of
Yeah,
ours. So
yeah, everyone gets to interpret it differently. Christopher Nolan doesn't ever tell us how he interprets the movie that he makes. He still hasn't told people whether the top stops spinning at the end of Inception.
yeah.
He'll likely never give his interpretation of Tenet. Um, so, I mean, eh, because he believes that the ability for the audience to interpret his work is half the fun. And I don't necessarily agree. I don't think that any artist has the authority to give a definitive answer on what something is. So,
They're
I,
not, and I'll tell you why, if you don't mind.
sure.
Um, what was that quote that I read recently? Good writers borrow, great writers steal. So, uh, I am no not like when I write a great piece of literature, or poetry, which I'm getting back into lately. Um, I know that there is nothing new under the sun, and that I am tapping into the collective consciousness, and I am just a pen that is writing what's already been written before in a unique handwriting style, which happens to be through the ego of Daniel Lewis Crumpton. But I'm not going to convince myself after I finish writing something that I that's completely original, because that's retarded. I mean, nothing is original. It's all been done before. It's all been done before.
Yeah,
All you
it's
can do is write it in your own handwriting, right?
yeah, I like that quote, great writers steal, because it's not about whether you I lost my train of thought.
Oh,
Continue.
okay. You mind if I eat
Um,
a spring roll while I'm?
oh, you're going to
Okay.
whether I give you permission or not.
You got that right.
Okay,
Um,
I got my train of thought back.
awesome.
Yeah, great writers steal. It's not about the idea, it's about the identity.
What you mean?
You put your own, every idea has been taken, but you can put your own identity on it. You can put your own interpretation on it. You can put your own flair on it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could write it in your own handwriting, and
Yeah,
if people dig it, then great. I just happen to think that the Wachowskis had really great handwriting on these age-old concepts. You know, really great handwriting. They told an age-old, timeless story, um, in a way that, again, for my generation, perfectly, perfectly did what it was supposed to do. Perfectly. And it was and I do honestly believe, even if the Wachowskis didn't intend it, I believe that the Uberverse, or God, which is more appropriate these days, uh, used them for that intent. Because, I mean, geez, look at what the movie did to our consciousness, on a mass scale.
I would argue that it actually did less to alter how people think than a movie like Fight Club did.
Um, I, ooh, I don't. I think you're talking about two wings of the same eagle. Um, honestly, I think you're
Fair.
talking. I don't think you can say one or the other did more. I think that one had the same purpose and intent as the other, but in different areas of thought, really. Because you're right, Fight Club was just as profound as The Matrix, just as profound. Um,
Yeah,
so I don't know if I'm not going to compare and contrast the two with that one, but
fair.
yeah, I know. I said it. So there you go.
You make it so hard to agree with you.
I know, but you do.
So hard. I don't like to.
All
Okay,
right,
so
all right. Take me where you want to go, dude.
no,
You
no.
go.
I introduced that topic. It's your turn. What do you enjoy? What do you enjoy? You started talking to your Uber Eats guy. What do you like about the Matrix? What part of the story works for you?
I like all the Easter eggs. I love Easter eggs. I love hunting for hidden little nuggets. And I like the fact that the movie starts off at the heart of the city hotel, right? In room 303, which is interesting. 303, okay, that's pretty cool. I like that. I like those little Easter eggs.
Why is 303 interesting?
303 is interesting because for me, it reminds me of room 101 from George Orwell's 1984 times 3, 303, right? And of course, I'm kind of into numerology, so 3 plus 3 is 6, and 6 is the number of um, reversing 3, which 3 represents Cain from the Bible, which is wrath and envy and jealousy and murder. So 3 plus 3 equals 6, and that's the mirror image, which means it's a reversal of those
You
negative qualities in
you you,
numerology.
you just hurt my head.
Yeah,
Yeah, you just. I don't
I mean,
like numbers. Numbers freak me out.
numerology is real simple. All you got to do is 0 to 10. That's it. But I like that Easter egg. I like the Easter eggs of their names being anagrams, like Neo is the one. I like the fact that Thomas Anderson means the son of God. I like that Morpheus is the god of dreams. Um, I like I thought it was great because they called Smith Agent Smith, and it was like, for my generation, we used to have these things, Dylan, called phone books, and
Wow.
and it was like everybody's phone number. We had these things called landlines, but
Yes,
the
I'm familiar with landlines,
okay,
Daniel.
there were
Stop
more.
making yourself sound like more of a boomer than you are.
All right. Anyway, uh, so I like that they called Agent Smith because when it used to be a running gag back in the day when the biggest section of the phone book was Smith. So Smith could be anybody. It was so many Smiths in the system. So I like that Easter egg.
Well, Thomas Anderson and uh, Smith are two of the most generic names you can come up with. So, I mean, they were both meant to be that, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But I dig it because I do that with my writing too. I did it before I saw The Matrix. Make anagrams of certain names and stuff like that for the stories and whatnot, and be like, I wonder if anybody will ever find it. Now the Wachowskis did it so blatantly, it just poked you in the eye where you were like, that means something. Even people who aren't awake were like, yeah, that's got a meaning there. But I liked all the Easter eggs. I like the fact that I like the in the very beginning you have the rabbit tattoo, which is an invitation to go into Wonderland. You know, I thought that was brilliant, and that he has these choices to either follow synchronicities or not follow synchronicities, and I like that, and sometimes he does, and it puts him in a bad way, like when he gets the cell phone from Morpheus, and he doesn't have enough courage to do exactly as his Morpheus, somebody outside of the system, is guiding him to do. He gives in to fear, and then he ends up in custody, which is where we get the cool, his passport expires on 9/11/2001. Um, hmm, no. And this movie was made in what, 1999, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are cool Easter eggs. I mean, the movie's loaded with Easter eggs, loaded with Easter eggs. Um, the Oracle of Delphi, I dug that. I loved the Oracle. I loved the character of the Oracle, and I loved that they made it a point, especially in the context of this philosophical Trojan horse. They made it a point to do the whole thing with man know thyself, because that is, if there's if anybody who doesn't have time for spirituality or going through all these different scriptures and things like that, if there's any spiritual thing that you should know, it should be, man, know thyself, and you will know the worlds and their gods, right? Because most religions and spirituality, most people who aren't just, they're just not ready. They focus on the outward rituals or relics, or the outward, that which is within Maya. And it may give them a little bit of power in the Uberverse. It may get them somewhere, but ultimately, it's a hamster wheel. You're not going to find escape from Maya and samsara within Maya and samsara. So that's what I find very cool about this movie, is that the Oracle pointed out, man, know thyself and you know the worlds of the gods, because ultimately everything that the Oracle really says is just a suggestion. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it it's a suggestion, and though she makes her suggestions very convincingly and persuasively, uh, which is another key element to these movies, which is it doesn't override free will, right? Um,
No.
and I'm of the belief that prophecy and things like oracles or psychics or any type of oracular device, and me, you and Kai Wong have joked about oracular devices before, so you already know how I feel about it. They're cool suggestions, cool tools, you know, but my free will override your tarot deck or your pendulum or your tea leaves or your chicken bones any day of the week and twice on Sunday, right? Um, so I like that concept. I like that they. I like the imagery of the movie for one thing. And the fact that the Oracle was this, uh, older black chick living in the ghetto, rather than, because when they build her up as the Oracle, you're thinking they're gonna take him to some, brilliant palace, and there's gonna be some, goddess looking chick, and it's like, no, it's this chick that likes to bake cookies and has a bunch of weird kids in her apartment. I dug it. It's like, because in my experience messing with the Uberverse and spirituality, it is very, very much like that. And I've been having a lot of discussions lately about angels and demons and the unseen with other spiritual practitioners in my circle, inner circle, close inner circle. And this discussion has come up a lot, which is angels and archangels and seraphim, which do exist. I mean, even on a scientific quantum physics level, you have entities and consciousnesses in different wavelengths of existence, and they probably can interact with us and do on a daily basis. That they do honestly appear here on our earth as typically, in my experience, homeless people or people who most of society would deem as mentally handicapped. And most people just hurry or scurry past them on the street or across the street as to not interact with them. But I'll tell you what, when I'm in a metropolitan area, that's who I go to. I want to be near the homeless people and near the people who are, talking to themselves as they move their fingers wildly. Because whenever I approach them, they typically have very, 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 very profound things to say specific to me, my situation currently at that point in time, and it typically is guidance that sends me where I need to go. And so the fact that the Wachowskis incorporated that element into this was, to me, it was brilliant, and to me would indicate that these guys, gals, sorry, but then they were guys, so they also have those similar experiences that me and other people of my spiritual circles do too. So I dug that. Okay.
Mhm.
You want me to keep
Okay.
going with what's good?
I mean, yeah, you're doing good.
Oh, thank you, Dylan.
You're staying on topic. I'm proud of you.
Oh, and am I being mean to you, Dylan?
No. Well,
No.
no meaner than normal.
Oh, but does it hurt your feelings, Dylan?
No, I don't have feelings to hurt.
No, you're a cold as ice. I just wanted to say that because some people may think that I'm being mean to you, but this is the nature of our relationship. We actually love each other quite a lot. It's nice. Our mutual love of theater and movies and films and humor and browbeating one another is just, it's the way we say, I love thee. Yes?
So, Matrix, sure. So,
Yeah, yeah.
Matrix.
Oh, that's what we're
No,
talking about.
I actually, no, I really like the Oracle as well.
Yeah.
Um, that was the part that I gravitated to the most. I really like how they set that up. It really was kind of a man behind the curtain moment in a reverse way. I
Hmm.
feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like, yeah, and I like the fact that she doesn't outright, I mean, she does allow for free will. Like she's just vague enough, and one would say maybe she's deceitful, but when Neo has been almost convinced that he is the one, and in her wisdom, she's like, she could have said, "Yep, you're it." And if she had of, he probably would have got his face blown off by the first agent that he saw, right? Because it is very, very true. You, there is a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And most of the time, in order to walk the path, there has to be a shadow of doubt that you can succeed. Because it's like going on stage for an actor, or going on a radio show live. People ask me like, "Hey, when you go on a radio show, do you ever get nervous?" And I go, every single time I do, because I care. I care how I'm going to perform, and I care what messages, or what's going to come out of my mouth, if it's going to be worthwhile to somebody. You know, and so the concept of knowing the path versus walking the path, and that the oracle doesn't outright give prophecy like this must happen, like fundamentalist Christians, for example. This is going to happen, it's going to happen, so there's no need for you to even exert your free will, because it's completely beyond your control, right? Fuck that noise. I don't believe in that, just like Neo didn't believe in that something else is in control of your life. Okay? Something else may have great gravitational pull or push on your life, but the laws of the Uberverse, uh, it has to allow for free will, which in the later movies comes heavily into with the architect talking about the anomaly. And the anomaly is an individual exerting free will, but we'll get to that when Kai Wong is on with us later. So I like that. I like the Oracle thingy. Um, Clearly, I liked the whole Judas Iscariot with Cypher. I like that. I like that there is a guy who gets out of the matrix, sees what reality really is, and goes,
Mhm.
ah, I want to go back. I get it because we call that Kundalini psychosis in my inner circles, which is some people will have a Kundalini experience. Either they will try to induce it and they're just not balanced enough to handle it, or it will accidentally happen. They'll accidentally get triggered into a Kundalini experience. And since they haven't like balanced their fourfold nature, it causes Kundalini psychosis, which is basically what I think Cypher experiences. And he wants to go back and he don't want to remember a thing about reality. Not a
I
thing.
mean, I can't say I blame him. Most normal people have that reaction.
I mean, even I think even to a degree, Neo did when he gets unplugged and he says, "I can't go back, can I?" And I think it was Trinity. She says, "If you could, would you though?" So I think there is that when you do wake up or you do escape and you do see the reality or the more reality than reality that you were presented with. When you see it, it is very, very frightening. And it's like, oh my God, I can't unsee what I want to unsee. But it takes a certain type of spinelessness that Cypher exhibits to actually try to implement it by being a turncoat on his friends. You know what I'm saying? So I dug that was there. And I've never heard anybody say this before, but whenever he's having that steak dinner with Agent Smith, he says, I want to be somebody important when you put me back in. And they call him Mr. Reagan. I was like, I wonder if that's like an allusion to Ronald Reagan and if kind of woulda, coulda, whatever. I never do. But anyway, that's just me.
Hmm,
Just saying.
interesting.
hmm Not really. Um, but okay.
So, with our last like 10 minutes, I want to get to is someone we've actually kind of not talked about all that much, and that's Morpheus.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the character of Morpheus in the story?
I think he is very much a John the Baptist type character. Um, and you know me, I come from the school of the biblical. That was my initial initiatory foundation for my spirituality. So I really dig it. But yeah, he is the God of dreams. Okay. But I like the idea that he is the forerunner of the Messiah and that he has so much faith in what he's doing. And in the second movie, he says something that is really, it's like kind of like my motto when, oh, what's his face? That general dude says, not everybody believes what you believe, Morpheus. And he says, my beliefs do not require them to. That, to me, that encapsulates the entire character of Morpheus as well as John the Baptist. And in the same vein as John the Baptist, there was a point when John the Baptist is incarcerated and they're going to behead him. And he sends, word to Christ and says, hey, are you the one, dude? Like he's at a very low point where all hope seems to be lost. And he, even in that moment, is like, dude, I believed in you. Like, I believed in you from the word go. And here I am in jail about to get my head taken off my shoulders. Are you really the one? And Morpheus actually has that moment, later in the trilogy. But I like the idea that he yeah, I like his conviction, the conviction of his beliefs. And I like the
Yes.
fact that they made him a terrorist within the Matrix because anybody who's ever done a fucking thing to make change in this world, okay, anybody, has always been labeled an enemy of the state. Always. As
Yeah.
they say, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, right? Which is
Yeah.
why I don't get into the whole political charade because it's like, nah, who is on the Department of Homeland Security's watch list right now? Because that's the guy I want to kind of line up with whoever that is. So I like the fact that they made him a terrorist. Okay? I like also that he keeps in line with the idea of free will by offering them a choice. of the red pill or the blue pill. You know. Um, Also, I mean, in the second movie, the imagery in the second and third movies to me was that's brilliant to me. It even surpassed the first one. Whenever he's on the bridge on the highway with the sword and the machine gun at the same time, I was like, oh my god, the imagery of that was just so great. But that's for later. Um, I like that. I like the fact that um, he even knowing that um, fighting an agent is certain death in order to protect his people, you know, whenever they're trying to escape and Cypher betrays them when they're going through the wet wall, he stands his ground in that bathroom to give his team time enough to get out of the matrix, knowing that he's probably going to die. You know, he knows he's going to die, but he stands his ground in that bathroom. You know what I mean? Or yeah, in that disheveled bathroom. To me, that's a leader, dude. That is a leader. That's what a leader does. That's what the captain of a ship does. First in, last out. And if
Mhm.
you know he's got to buy time with his life for his crew, and that's what he's going to do. You know, and to me, that you know, I like that. I dig that. Um,
Yeah.
so there's that. You know, I like the Morpheus, dude. And I like Trinity. I thought Trinity was a great character. I thought she was, you know, the idea, you know, when we get to near the end of the movie, which we're racing through pretty quick, when Neo begins to believe, all right, without outside suggestion or confirmation, he just goes within himself at the end of that subway after he gets Trinity out, and he begins to believe and stands his ground with Smith. You know, I think he got that from the inspiration and the example that Morpheus had set, you know, just a little while earlier, right?
Yeah. And
Um,
Larry Fishburne played it perfectly. Or
yeah,
Lawrence.
yeah, they all, like I said in the beginning, they all did their parts perfectly. Um, but yeah, and the whole end scene where the movie ends where it begins, so everything's full circle. You know, Neo ends in the heart of the city in room 303, right? It's like that's where the movie began with Trinity, right? And he suffers a death experience, and it's like, oh my god, you know, I remember when I first saw it when Smith just unloaded the clip in his chest, I was like, oh, what the hell? Because if you die in the Matrix, you die, right? And what does cause resurrection, which is why I think Trinity was critical to this movie, is in defiance of everything that you know, or in defiance of everything that you've been told that things ought to be this way or are this way. What ultimately resurrects Neo?
I am super blank on this.
Right.
You're actually gonna have to remind me. I'm sorry.
Right. He's got slugs in the chest, and in the real world, he's dead. He flatlines, and Trinity whispers to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, you got to get up because, you know, basically, I love you. So that in that instance, what has power over death? What is the power of resurrection in that scene?
Uh, I mean, it sounds cheesy, I guess, but it sounds like love brought him back.
Love. And it doesn't sound cheesy. That's not cheesy.
It's
That's
a,
brilliant.
it's a little cheesy.
It's not cheesy at all. Butthole?
It, it's only less cheesy than the power of friendship.
Well, that's
Re-
love too. You know, that's love too.
Yes, it is, but it's a different thing.
But yeah, there's, you know, agape love and phileo love and, you know, koinonia. Yeah. But the power of love has the power over life and death. It literally has the power to resurrect. And I mean, that ultimately, that's why Trinity was essential to this movie, was because that's what slams it home, man, which is love can resurrect you from the depths of death. And when it does, you have a new sight and you can see the code and you can do things that previously you could never, ever, ever do before. You can walk on water. You can perform miracles. You can turn the water into wine. You can, you know, where the demons once you ran from them or hid from them. Now you, with the power of love and resurrection, you can look a demon square in the face and run towards him without any effort whatsoever, and go inside of the demon and make it explode into shards of light. You know, so it's the power of love, Dylan. You need to get some of that, dude. You need to get it. So I dug that. I dug, and again, where does the movie end? Where does that scene supernova? In the heart of the city hotel. In the heart of the city. And this all is spiritual stuff. This is all scriptural stuff. All scriptures talk about the power of love, and that really that's where we need to get. You know, and in my circles, you get people who can fuck around with metaphysics and everything, and they do it for either power or for materialistic reasons, and it's like you're doing it all wrong, as Kai Wong would say. That's not the source of power. You can your gods, your goddesses, your elements, your trinkets, and your toys. That is not magic. That's not. I mean, those are cool little toys that you can mess around with in your sandbox. But unless you actually have the type of love that Christ talks about, or Krishna talks about, or Buddha talks about, you're in elementary school, if that. When it comes to being able to have an effect on this material plane and the Uberverse at large. Does that make sense? So it's not cheesy, dude. Duh.
It's a little cheesy, but that's
Eh,
okay.
well, that's why you will never, ever, ever be able to pull a rabbit from your hat, Mr. Wade.
There are other reasons, but point taken.
Point taken. So,
um, no, okay. So, in conclusion, with our last couple of minutes, I like The Matrix. I think it's a fine movie. I don't love it. I didn't find it as profound as you did, but that's because of the differences in when it came out versus when I actually watched it. Um,
yeah,
I watched it 20 years after a bunch of other movies had a chance to uh, come in and do the same things.
right. I mean, and I agree with you on that. But if my generation and being exposed to this and having our minds and hearts and souls blown away by it basically has given birth to people like you who go, oh, simulation, yeah, which was the point. Doesn't mean your generation doesn't have some work to do, Dylan, and we've discussed this before too. We're counting on you guys also to carry forth. But I do believe that when the fourth Matrix movie comes out, I think it's going to make um, even your generation have an experience that my generation had when we first saw it. You know, I believe that.
Maybe. I am curious to see how the fourth Matrix goes. With that, that'll conclude this episode of Popcorn Politics. Daniel, where can people find you?
You can find me in Georgia, but not if I owe you money. No. You can find me at zeninthecar.com and all the stupid social media widgets that go with it, like Twitter and Instagram and yada yada. We are about to go on holiday break in November, and we will be back in 2021. And the podcast is already out there. But whenever we reboot, we're going to be on all the platforms so that you can get all that,
Yes.
all Stitcher and iTunes and all that good stuff will be there. Find me at zenthecar.com. You can find me at getcannasense.com for you guys who need medical cannabis, which is all of you because you guys need to chill out for real. Um,
um, and you can find me on YouTube at Popcorn Politics. And with that, we are done. Next week, I will be back with Eric Cunningham to talk Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Dylan. Love ya. Mean it.